All right, so what I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna talk for a few minutes about the number one issue that I see in doing densities out in the field. This issue, I know it makes subcontractors upset, it makes the dirt guys upset, it makes the GCs upset because progress isn't getting done. A lot of times the owner doesn't know it, but it'll make the owner upset because they're paying for tests that they're paying for more tests than what they need. And the number one issue for someone taking densities in the field is again, this is just my personal opinion, is a changing of soil. Okay, when you do a select fill like a crushed limestone base or some type of pit run or something like that, those materials tend to be more consistent. Those are processed, so those are really consistent. You're not going to see a lot of change in that material. But when you're doing on-site fill or general fill and things like that, thing is going to change all the time. Sometimes it changes when you're cutting a deep hole, like a building pad. Say you cut it 5 feet, you're going to see the different layers in the building pad. Sometimes when you're doing a trench, you'll see the different layers from here to 15, 20, 30 feet away to another section away. The material is going to change. So that is why, one, it is super important to get a good representative sample. You're never going to get a sample that's going to represent everything. You're always going to have some patches that have extra gravel or less gravel, stuff like that. But it's important to get a good representative sample. Number two, the description of the soil is a big help. I know typically if you're a field tech, you don't really set the descriptions. That's more the guys that work in the lab. But the description is a big help. And what it is as you're taking density tests, you're going to take a test on let's say a tan gravelly clay. Okay, and you're going to have a proctor of 125. Okay, so you're going to get in there and you're saying, hey, I'm shooting for 125, and you go take your test and you get a 115 pounds. Okay, and your gauge is going to say something like, I don't know, 91%. I'm just kind of using some fake numbers here. But if you shoot for 125, you shoot at 115, you're going to be like at 91%. Oh, well, you need 95%, it failed. It's what a lot of techs are going to say, or inexperienced techs. But yet, you walk on it, whether it's, let's just say we're looking at a little building pad. You walk on it, it's nice and tight, it's got plenty of moisture, it looks really good. They say, well, hold on a second, let us roll it a little bit more. And they roll it some more with their steel wheel or their flat drum or whatever type of roller they're using. And you check it again, and you're still getting a 115. It's not going up anymore. A lot of times, and this is where the issue comes in, is to say, well, you know what? You did not reach 95. It failed. When in the real issue is that it didn't fail. It's got the compaction. The problem is the proctor changed. And I said we're using a tan gravelly clay. Now, if you have less gravel, that it's going to be harder to reach that higher weight of 125. Instead, you're reaching only 115 because there's less gravel and more clay. So the material changed a little bit, and that's typically and that's going to happen a lot. Look, check this out. So here's a trench I'm working on. It's about 3 feet deep, and you can see the top part is dark brown clay. Then you got some light tan stuff right there, a few pieces of gravel, and then I come right here, and same thing. I have less clay on top, more tan stuff, but lots of gravel, bigger pieces, and we're talking an area from here to there. That's probably, I mean, I'm gonna say 15 feet at the most. Big difference right there. Okay, so what do you do when you see something like that? So the right thing to do is to say, hey, you know what? The material changed. I need to take another sample. Where I work, we call them proctors. We need to take another sample or proctor. And a lot of times they're going to kind of frown on that because it's going to take maybe a week to get numbers back, and they don't want to wait a week. They're backfilling now, or they're building the building pad now, and for them to say, hey, you know what, I don't have a week, I'm going to keep going, and that's up to them. You know, they want to keep going, we can do some blind shots, etc., but that's up to them. But the right thing to do is to pull another proctor. Now, I tell this to everybody I train. You know, at the end of the day, you make the call because your name is going on that report. Okay, it is up to you. It's up to you if you want to say, you know what, this looks really, really tight, and while I'm only reaching 91%, I'm gonna work with you here, and I'm gonna talk to the GC and you know, maybe my project manager and everything, and we're gonna make a determination if this is gonna be considered passing. You know, you want to go about it the right way. You want to, you know, I'm not saying cheat. I'm not saying change the numbers. I'm not saying, oh, just make it a 95 instead of a 91. That is not what I'm saying. There's proper protocols, or there's a proper process on how to go about fixing it and making it right. There's a couple things to factor in. How many more times is this material going to be tested? If this is the last time this is going to be tested, I personally don't think there's no point in pulling another sample if all we're going to do is sit there and say, you know, run a whole sample to check these two tests. But if the material changed a lot, we're going to be testing this material for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 lifts, then we probably need to pull a sample. It's a better idea. So anyway, talk to your, you know, you could, like I said, talk to your PM, talk to the GC, talk to, you know, whoever you need to talk to, get everybody involved, figure out how you're going to address the issue. But the issue of materials changing and techs looking at this gauge and saying, oh, it says 91 on it, it's got to be a 91. No, that's not the case. These gauges are just tools, okay? The gauges don't know what's going on. The gauges don't know if the materials changed. The gauges don't know if the material changed from a tan gravelly clay to a tan sandy clay, which is gonna affect the weight you're looking for. So yes, use the numbers off a gauge, read the gauge, you know what the gauge says, but at the end of the day, the gauge is just a tool that's gonna help you, you know, take some readings without knowing everything that's going on. So get some practice with that in the field, learn how to use it, learn how to, you know, be able to read different soils, learn how to look for compaction without using the gauge. One of the things that I like to do is I like to, when I pull up on a job site to do densities, I look at a building pad or I look at a trench and I tell myself, okay, this looks like it's going to be about 96% compacted at 15 moisture, or 100% compacted at 8 moisture, or whatever. And I kind of try to test myself, and then I'll actually take the test and I'll see how off I am, or if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And over time I've learned to get to the point where I can almost look at something and tell, hey, this is gonna pass density. It takes some time, it's not easy to do, especially when you have a bunch of different materials you're looking at, but at the end of the day, look, to try to combat this whole issue is keep in mind and be flexible, and look at the soil and do your little quote investigation real quick before you say, oh, the gauge says 91, it's only 91% compacted. Just because it says 91 doesn't mean it's always 91. Is it 95 or 96 or 97? I don't know. But the reason I don't know is because I don't have numbers to compare to with this new material, with this different material, with this changed material. So keep that in mind. We all go to these job sites to work together. We all have one goal to accomplish, and good luck out there.